Hey everybody, Dr. Hellman here. Welcome back to building your own virtualized ethical hacking laboratory using Oracle VirtualBox. This is the second of two movies. In this movie, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and install Metasploitable, and we'll go in and play around with it a little bit, see if we can hack into it a little bit, learn a couple of the Kali tools that you would use for your ethical hacking purposes. And so this should be a lot of fun. Let's get going. Beautiful. So here we are. We've got Oracle VirtualBox running right here. In fact, I've got two copies of it running. Here's what it looks like. And then I have pfSense running. And you'll want to check and make sure you have a WAN address here. It's got to pick up an address from your, if you're at home, your cable modem or whatever is going to be giving out addresses, and so you need to make sure you see something in here. If you don't, what I would consider doing is if it's set for NAT, I would set it for bridged adapter to see if you can pick up that WAN address. Normally it works really well just in NAT, so if you don't see an address, you've got some checking to do from a network perspective. You should always see the LAN address showing up here. This is evidence that pfSense is working fine. And here's Kali. I've got that running now, so everything's good there. And now what I want to show you is I want to bring in Metasploitable, and I've got it right here in a folder, Linux Metasploitable, and then you have to unzip it, and you'll get this folder here. Now this is a VMDK. This is not a double clickable file, like you can't click on it and do what you need to do. We have to semi-install it. So I want to back up. pfSense we installed from an ISO file. It's a full-on installation. You've got to go through the installation menu items. I think you'll find that Ubuntu works roughly the same way. And then of course with Kali we were able to download a virtual machine that can play in the sandbox with Oracle VirtualBox, so we're good there. Now in this case with Metasploitable 2, what we have is a virtual machine disk, a VMDK, and we have to somehow get that ready for VirtualBox. So here's what you do. So you click New, and we're going to type in that this is Metasploitable 2. Metasploitable 2. And I'm going to put it in my D drive because I don't want to have these virtual boxes in my C drive. So I come here to D, VirtualBox VMs, and I'm going to select Metasploitable if it's not out there already. Select that folder. Great. We don't have an ISO image. This is where the rubber meets the road here. We don't have an ISO. What we have is a VMDK. So we do need to set it to Linux. It's going to default to Oracle 64-bit. That's fine. It doesn't really matter. We're just telling it that the system that we have is going to be Linux-based. In this case is Debian. I don't know if we could see Debian out here. You can see there's all these version numbers to pick from. There's Debian 64. I'll just pick that. That's fine. And I'm going to click Next. Now, we're going to give Metasploitable, this is 2 gig of RAM. That's fine. I'll give it 2 CPUs, that's fine, and we'll click Next. It's not going to take up more than 20 gig, but just to be safe, I'm going to give it 30 gig of space. Click Next, excuse me. This is where you grab the VMDK. So I give it 30 gig of space, and then what I do is I select Use an existing virtual hard disk file. You click this button right here, this little up arrow thing, and you go out and you find it. Now what you're looking at here is what's called the hard disk selector window in Oracle VirtualBox. So it's keeping track of the virtual hard disks that we have installed already. We need to add one, so I'm going to click the Add button. I'm going to go out here to Data, Software, Metasploitable. That's Metasploitable 3. I'm keeping everything under Linux here. Metasploitable, Metasploitable 2, and there that VMDK shows up. We need that. Now you can see here that it says it's not attached. On the bottom here you see it says choose. So we're going to Make sure this guy's highlighted, and we're going to choose it. Now it will become a part of the official installed hard drives list. Shows up here, everything's good. We go to next, and we get a summary sheet. We click finish. Just like before, you can look on the right hand side and see what the properties are for this particular machine. Now what we're going to do is we have to go into settings. Remember, you create the machine, you go into settings, and then you run the machine. And if you were using like an ISO file, you would have to go through that installation process. We're just going to make it sure and check that everything is okay. I'm going to enable bidirectional here in General Advanced. I don't need a description, but you can key in a description if you want to. I'm not encrypting this disk, but if I was a hacker sitting in a house somewhere in some other country, I'd probably encrypt it in case the cops beat down the door or something like that. I go to System. Again, I don't like floppy being enabled. I'm going to move hard disk up in the boot order. Optical's next, and just for giggles and hoots, I'm going to put floppy down on the bottom, but it doesn't matter because it's not enabled. And then we've already set our processor. These boxes are unchecked. You could check one if you wanted to. Like I said, I'm just going to go with the defaults here. Under display, there's nothing to set. Storage, there is nothing to set here. Audio, I'm going to keep audio. I don't think I need to keep it because we're not going to deal with any sounds in Metasploitable. If you were running something like a YouTube or Spotify or something like that, you'd need it if you were going to run it inside that VM, but we don't need it here. And this is the important one. We're going to change it from NAT to internal adapter, IntNAT. So now we're going to have two machines on IntNAT, Kali and this box here, this Metasploitable box. pfSense is giving out IP addresses to both of those machines. And then pfSense is on, its adapter 2 is set for IntNAT, and its adapter 1 is set for NAT. Serial ports haven't changed, USB hasn't changed. Click OK, and then we're going to run the machine. So we click Start. Now this doesn't really require an installation like pfSense did. It comes basically ready to roll, but the processes are that we have to point to it because it's a VMTK, and then we also want to make sure that it's on the correct network, so it's not on NAT. If you bring something up, we're going to do a test here. We showed you in the last movie how to do sudo netdiscover. If you use sudo netdiscover and you do not need to see this Metasploitable machine showing up, that probably means that you forgot to set it from NAT to IntNet, and you'll have to stop the machine. I'm going to show you how to properly stop the machines today and go back in and change it to the correct network. This runs really well almost every time. This is one of those that as soon as you click inside, it's going to grab your keyboard and your mouse, and you have to hit the right control key to get back out. But I do want to show you the log on here, so I'm going to click inside here, and you can see on the screen it says login with MSF admin, and my password is MSF admin. Beautiful, I'm logged in. I am root on the Metasploitable box. Let me explain what MSF means. So Metasploit is what they call a framework. The idea is that it comes with a certain bunch of goodies that you can use, but then people can write scripts that they can then snap into Metasploit to further make it further useful. And so it's really cool. You can write Ruby scripts. It likes Ruby. I think it can use Python now, if I remember right. But anyway, that's why it's called a framework. So when you see the letters MSF, Metasploit Framework is what that stands for. And I can run ifconfig here just to see what my IP address is. And there it is. I'm at 1.101. I can also type in IPA here. And there it is. I'm at 1.101. And then if you notice here, IPA in Metasploit doesn't provide any color coding for, the Ethernet adapter or the IP number or anything like that. This is a very, very basic version of Debian Linux, and so it's not going to do much of that. Now I have to hit my right control key to get my mouse back. There it is. and I'm going to minimize this. I'm going to leave it running, and I'm going to minimize that. I'm going to bring Kali back up. Okay, we grab our prompt here. Prompt is always pretty much going to be the first thing. You're not going to use a lot of menus in Kali Linux. You're going to usually use the terminal here. There it is. I'll widen it out a little bit. And so we're going to run sudo, which is called superuserdo. Let me show you the su command. So if for some reason you needed to log on as root to execute some utility or whatever, and you didn't want to use sudo, what you would do is you would type in sup, like that, and hit enter, and then it prompts you for your password, and we log in, and it's going to change prompts. Oop, my authentication failed. That's okay, I'm not worried about it. It would say root here at Kali. I'm going to clear the screen, and I'm going to do sudo net discover, like so. And what it's going to do, I have to provide my password. It's going to go out and find all of the devices on our network. Our network is the 192.168.1 network. There are 2 hosts out here that have found that do not include us. We have 1.1 out here, so this is .1. This is a host on the network, and 101 is a host on the network. .1 is the pfSense box. .101 is the Metasploitable box. We don't show up on this list because we know that our address, I'm going to clear the screen, is 1.100. And there we are right there. So we have essentially 3 machines. pfSense at 1.1, we've got Kali at 1.100, and now we have Metasploitable at 1.101. Now, let's talk about one of the tools that you're going to use quite often in Kali. When a hacker wants to go out and they want to begin, whatever, they pick out somebody that they want to begin to start trying to pick on, they're going to do what's called enumeration. So what they're trying to do is figure out the machines, the routers, the switches, all the stuff on their network. They're trying to get a really good picture of what's on the network. And so they're going to use a tool called Nmap. Now, there is a graphical equivalent for Nmap called ZenMap, and I have a movie out on my Tech Talk Education site that you can go through that shows you how to install ZenMap. But mostly we're going to use Nmap command line. The reason that's important is your students are going to have to know how to use command line Linux. In a lot of distributions, such as Metasploitable, it's all command line. There is no way, there's no GUIs at all. Kali, we're lucky. We've got a bunch of GUIs, but even then, for the most part, you're going to wind up working in the terminal quite a bit. This box here is called a terminal. Another word for it is a shell. And so oftentimes you'll hear a hacker say, well, I've gotten a shell into a computer, or I've gotten a reverse shell into a computer. They're talking about this, where they can go ahead and issue commands. Okay, so let's learn another command now. So I'm going to ping 192.168.1.101. And that is my Metasploitable box. I'm going to hit enter. Now this thing will go and go and go and go. It does not stop. And so what it's doing now is it's pinging. Now imagine that you had, say, 8 or 10,000 computers that you had taken over as a zombie, and you have them all simultaneously ping Microsoft, for example, or Cisco, or whoever, and they just go and go. They do not stop pinging. And what happens is the machines that are acting as the servers for that environment get so tied up responding to this ping that they can't really do any other work. This is called the ping of death. It has a bit better name. It's called the denial of service, because we're denying services to other users that want to use these servers for whatever kind of work they want to do. And so this is called the ping of death, denial of service. When I have 8 or 10,000 computers doing this all simultaneously, it's called a distributed denial of service, a DDoS. Denial of service is called a DOS. A distributed denial of service is called a DDoS. These are really dangerous, and we don't want to allow that. And so I'm going to hit Control-C to stop from pinging, but you can tell that 1.101 is alive. Ping allows you to check and see if a machine is alive. I'll clear the screen. Let's try another example. Ping www.microsoft.com and hit enter, and we should get a response back from Microsoft. It's hit some site out there, 23.12, and there we go. We get the response back from Microsoft in Control-C. Okay, so that's pinging. You probably know about that. It's part of the TCP/IP suite of utilities that you can use, and kids really need to know TCP/IP like the back of their hand if they're going to work in cybersecurity. So as a teacher, you need to plan on being a TCP/IP expert, both version 4 and version 6. And version 6 is a pretty good dip in the pond. It's quite a bit more convoluted than even IPv4 is, but you must know it and your kids have to know it. Okay, so we ran a command called netdiscover. That's a Linux command, and it showed us that the metasploitable box is out there. We were able to ping that box so we can validate that it's alive. Now let's run a command just to see, okay? So there's a command called nmap. This is built right into Kali. This is a very, very sophisticated, very well-known tool or utility, however you want to describe it. And we're going to run nmap on 192.168.1.101 and hit enter. And what nmap does is it returns back a bunch of open ports. Now here's the thing. You've got a TCP/IP protocol. For example, HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol, is responsible for serving web pages. HTTP always listens on port 80. So it's always going to use port 80. So the trick here now is that your students have to be able to put a protocol together with a port number. And so you can see we've got a bunch of protocols open, a bunch of ports open. Some are not very good. Some shouldn't be open. Here's an example. FTP, File Transfer Protocol. Old idea, not in use much anymore unless it's been automated in some way. You and I can't really go out and run FTP per se. It listens on port 21. There is a substitute for FTP called SSH. It is secure. It uses public key encryption for everything. 2 keys, public and private, and it listens on port 22. Telnet is completely unsecure. Like, it is not secure. And if you are a hacker and you're trying to hit a bank or whatever, insurance company or whatever, and you're trying to grab accounts or money or what have you, and you see Telnet open, you basically have the keys to the kingdom because it's all clear text. Everything is clear text. It listens on port 23. Simple Mail Transfer Protocol is what moves email from one place to another, and it listens on port 25. And then Domain Name System, it's called DNS. It's like the phone book of the internet. So when I type in www. like for example Etsy.com, and I want to go to see Etsy and I've never been there before, what will happen is my computer will query a DNS server and say, hey, where does Etsy live? Etsy.com, and it will return back that IP address to me so that I can hit Etsy.com via IP address, and DNS listens on port 53. And there are some other ports here as well. Okay, now I want to show you a little more sophisticated nmap command. So if we type in nmap, we're going to do attack capital A, and we're going to do attack capital T. By the way, when in my classes I don't really say dash or hyphen. Kids will go through movies like that where they're saying dash A, dash T. Years ago I watched a video where the guy narrating the video would say tack, the word tack, in place of a hyphen or a dash, and I liked it a lot. And since then I've heard a lot of different YouTubers and stuff that use the word tack, and the reason it's good for kids to hear that is because they think that's cool. Like that's really cool to be able to say nmap TAC A, TAC T, as opposed to sounding lame nmap -A -T. So that's why I use the TAC. We're going to go with T4. I'm going to do a TAC little o cap N, and I'm going to give it a file. So this is going to be called my_scan.txt. And then I'm going to tell it to go out to my metasploitable box 192.168.1.101, scan it, and let me explain some of these switches. Now Nmap has a ton of switches. I'll show you how you can learn more about those in just a minute. The TAC A you can think about as this stands for all. Give me all the information you can gather from this particular place. So it's going to do a very robust, very thorough scan. This stands for T. There are 5 levels of time. This is the 4th from the top, so it's pretty fast. Generally speaking, if we were scanning somebody that we knew might be watching us, we would scan at a lot slower time so that maybe the systems that are watching it were not able to pick up and see, hey, you know what, we're trying to scan you. Now, there's nothing illegal about scanning somebody. All this is doing is saying, do you have ports open, and give me more information. But security specialists might be looking at that, and they might contact you and say, what do you think you were trying to do when you were running an Nmap scan on me? But you're not breaking any laws right now scanning somebody. You're just doing reconnaissance. You're doing enumeration. If you acted on that enumeration, then that would be a lot different problem. So TAC O cap N means I'm going to have an output file, and this N means that I'm going to use a text file. There's 3 or 4 different TAC O switches that you can use. You give the file a name, and then you're telling it to go out and scan this guy here. So I hit enter, and this scan's going to take a little bit longer. The reason it's going to do that is because it's getting a lot more information. So we're just waiting on this to get information, and boom, up it comes. Now you're going to see some pipes. This little guy here is called a pipe, and it is just above the enter key. It's an uppercase backslash, and then a dash here. So Nmap's really good about collecting things together using these pipes and these dashes. And so as I scroll up through here, I see a lot of different things. I get a lot of information here out of Nmap. The first thing I see is that at port 21, it's running TCP. Let's stop and talk about this a minute, because your kids have to be able to differentiate between TCP and UDP. Transmission Control Protocol is a layer 3 protocol, and what it does is it is a connected protocol. So when you're logged on to Amazon with your user account, you're using TCP. And there's a lot of activity that goes on in terms of keeping track of the conversation. These packets go out in a different format. They're reassembled on the other side in a different format. We are going to encapsulate this stuff. We're going to encrypt it. And so there's a lot going on with TCP. UDP, on the other hand, Uniform Datagram Protocol, is very loosey-goosey. What we do is we just send the packets out, and we hope that they get there. And it's an easy story, but it's not exactly that way. But it's the easy way to explain to students about that. And what UDP would be similar to would be like, I'm going to get on the web and I'm going to find about Etsy.com. You haven't logged on, you just want to get more information about it. That's going to be a UDP request. Whereas if you have a logon, username and password to Etsy, boom, you've got a TCP request that's going out. And then this is FTP, the service that's running this, and it's running a version of software here called VSFTPD 2.3.4, and this happens to be a very unsecure version of this FTP software. So this is hackable. Now the training part is you have to know, or you have to be smart enough to look at what Nmap's telling you and go, I'm going to go see if this FTP, VS-FTPD 2.3.4 really is secure, fast, and stable. And when you go out there, like if you go out and look for vulnerabilities with VS-FTPD, you're going to see that there have been some hacks on it, and it is very vulnerable. So it's not secure at all, this particular version. Then it tells you, okay, anonymous login is allowed on FTP. Not good. We've got Secure Shell, and we're using Debian. Look at that. There's Debian 8 Ubuntu. And we've got some, this is PKI, public key encryption keys. One's for DSA, one's for RSA. Port 23 is open, and it's using good old regular Linux Telnet D. Port 25 is open. It gives you the SSL certificate, which could be juicy for you if you were wanting to hack into port 25. Gives you some other information here. DNS is open. Port 80 is open. And it's running the Apache web server. Listen, Apache is the bomb. Apache is running, my guess, probably 80% of the world's web servers. It's very high quality. This is a way lower version, so maybe there are some vulnerabilities that I could tap into using Apache. And the fact that it's running on port 80 and not on the secure version of HTTP, which is HTTPS port 443, means that there's something that's imminently hackable here. I might have to think about that. And as I go down here, you can see that I've got port 139 open. Now, I want to talk to you about NetBIOS. So back in the day when Windows started doing network, thank God they did because they did a great job with it, they created what is called NetBIOS. This is a very old protocol, which was ultimately ported into TCP/IP. This predates TCP/IP. And the idea is that we give a name to a computer. And the reason we give a name to a computer is so that we can go and share things out on that computer. I can hook into that computer by its NetBIOS name and look at the things that are shared out so that I can make use of them. We can do that with printers, we can do that with files, things like that. Well, Linux for a little while could not do that, so it couldn't play in the sandbox with NetBIOS. And NetBIOS listens on port 139 and port 445, but there was a protocol called Samba that you could use, which was tweaked or whatever, and we made it so that it could work with NetBIOS Windows shares. And so now, if I have Samba, I can connect natively to a Windows share. When I say share, what I'm talking about is the machine name. You type that in. There's a way that you type it in. It brings up all the shares on that computer, and then you can begin to connect to them. And there's privileges and rights built into that as well. It's a lot bigger story, but the fact that Samba's out here is cool. We also have MySQL, which is installed here. That's going to be really ripe for maybe I could do some sort of a SQL injection, which is something your students need to know about. It's very interesting. And then I have PostgreSQL also. This is another SQL product. So MySQL is very popular. This is a relational database system that's open source. It's very popular. PostgreSQL is also an open source database software tool, and it's on here as well. And these are downscale versions, so these are not the newest. And so that might be something I would want to maybe I could do a SQL injection into this Postgres box here. And then you get some other information here, like port 6000. This is Internet Relay Chat, IRC, port 6667. It happens to be open. And we would have to say, well, is there a way that I could get in and I could maybe hack into a chat room or something like that? And then we have some other stuff. Now, I want to show you something else. So Nmap has a scripting engine. And whenever you see this stuff spit out here, it says host script results. It's called Nmap Scripting Engine, NSE. It's a beautiful thing. There's a million scripts in there. They're very powerful. They do all kinds of different work for you. These were some scripts that were run here to give us even more information about what's happening here. So this is good stuff. Okay, so we've got some stuff. Now the first thing I notice here, I want to try a couple of things. I notice that port 80 is open here. So let's try our browser and see if we can hit the Metasploitable box. If port 80 is open, it's serving up websites. It's doing that via Apache web server. And so I'm going to open up Firefox. And once Firefox loads, I'm going to come out here and I'm going to try and hit 192.168.1.101. That is my Metasploitable box. And sure enough, I can hit it. And there's some links here for like Tweaky. PHPMyAdmin is an administration tool that is used to get into MySQL. There's this thing called Mutilidae. There's a way to hack using Mutilidae. There is the Damn Vulnerable Web App. It's called DVWA. It's called Damn Vulnerable Web App, but it's kind of cute because one of the courseware providers that I use doesn't like swearing very well, so they renamed it to Darn Vulnerable Web App, but honestly it's Damn Vulnerable Web App. Anyway, and WebDAV is a way, it was invented by Microsoft, so it's a way for sharing files. So there's some good stuff on here. Now I come back here and look some more. Well, this starts with 80, and I want you guys to know that when you have an intranet, not an internet, but an intranet, like a network, a website that runs inside, so you can fill in time cards and things like that. Oftentimes they will reuse the number 80. And so if I'm looking out here, scroll down through here, I noticed that there was a port 8180 here, and it's running HTTP, and it's using Apache, but it's using a Java Server Pages product called Tomcat. Let me show that to you. So the way that you go to a different port is you do 192.168.1.101 : and then we want to point it to port 8180 and hit enter, and there's Tomcat. Well, you know what, maybe we could get in there and hack Tomcat, so that's very interesting as well. Okay, so that we're just getting going here. I want you guys to know that if you go in and you look for Metasploitable 2, they call them walkthroughs. Like when you go through Try Hack Me or Hack the Box or whatever, and you're out on YouTube and you're looking for a way to solve one of these machines that's very difficult to solve, they call them a walkthrough. And so you'll find that there are Metasploitable walkthroughs that are available. Here is Rapid7 gives you an exploitability guide, and they talk to you a little bit about what's going on here. They give you some Unix basics, so this is all really good tutorials, really good training. It's going to show you everything that they've done to make this purposely unsecure. That's not the point of my particular movie here. All I want to do is show you how you can get started with this, and then I will leave it up to you to go in and do the other things. But look here, they give you the account name and password, MSF admin, user, Postgres, sys, and his password is Batman, clog, service. So we've got a lot of good stuff going on here. I'm going to minimize this guy. I'm going to clear the screen. And now what I want to do is I want to try using a couple of commands like FTP, and maybe I want to try using telnet just to get in and see if we can get in. So let's do that. So I'm going to FTP. The way that you use FTP is you type in FTP and you get a command prompt. You get an FTP prompt. File Transfer Protocol. This is one of the many hundreds of protocols in the TCP/IP suite of protocols, and its purpose is to do exactly like it says, transfer files. It listens on ports 20 and 21. Now we're using port 21 here, but you should know that back in the day, you would send using one port and receive using another. So what we're going to do is we're going to open, that's a FTP command, 192.168.1.101, boom, and now it says that I am connected. And now it wants to know a name. Well, I'm going to go ahead and use MSF admin and hit enter and hit MSF admin. Now you're not going to see the password. It's not going to display the password. The cursor's not going to move. This is a security precaution, which is really hysterical because we're trying to hack into FTP. But look here, it's telling you that VSFTPD 2.3.4 is out there, and you might want to go looking for vulnerabilities along the lines of that, and you will run into ways that you can hack VSFTPD to do some work. I'm going to run a Linux command. I'm going to teach you a Linux command called ls. It stands for list structure. So what it does is it shows you all of the files and the directories that are on this system. And you can tell it's a directory because there's a D right there. And the folder's name, the directory's name is vulnerable. Now directory equals folder. So back in the day we would call it a directory. Today we call it a folder. Microsoft invented that term, or maybe it was Apple, I don't know. The term's fine, but you just need to know that back in the day when we were in Unix land and we're on the machines, we're not going to call it, even back in the old Windows command days, we didn't call it a folder. We call it a directory, which can be a confusing term, I think, for some people. I'm going to teach you another Linux command, change directories. CD, and this command is used in Windows as well, CD, and then you tell it what folder to change into. So in this case, I'm going to change into the vulnerable folder and hit enter. Nothing happened, but the system tells me that I did successfully change into that folder. And if I do ls again, it's going to show me now that I've got some new directories. You cannot miss directories in Linux. When you get a wide listing like this, Linux is going to show this D right here, and then it's going to show you the name of the folders over here. So it's very simple. And if you hear a squeaking, that's my dog Zoe in the background playing with her chew toy. Okay, so that's FTP. I leave it up to you to go and research the hack for VSFTPD. That is a great thing to teach your students. If you can teach your students, you can say, hey, VSFTPD is open. What do you think? Do you think this is bad? Show them where you went to check for the vulnerabilities, and then show them how to use that vulnerability to get into the machine. Okay, now to get out of FTP, you type in exit and hit enter, and clear the screen is clear. Okay, so now that's FTP. Let's try another one. Let's try Telnet. So Telnet, you don't type in Telnet and then hit enter. You just tell it that you want to Telnet to another machine. So in this case, I'm going to Telnet to 192.168.1.101 and hit enter. And boom, you can see here, it's telling me it's Metasploitable 2, and it even shows me the username and password, MSF admin. Hit enter, MSF admin, and hit enter. Oop, I didn't do it right. MSF admin, enter, MSF admin, and enter. And I am in. I am root on this machine. Like, I could totally just completely delete this computer. I could format the drive on this computer and leave and call it a day. So MSF Telnet is very dangerous, and one of the things that makes it the most dangerous is that everything is clear text. So if I'm doing a man-in-the-middle attack, I can see everything that's sent to and from that server. And Telnet listens on port 23. Okay, I went back to Firefox, and you can see that I did a quick search for VSFTP 2.3.4 vulnerability, and Rapid7 has done a document on this. Here's some other documents, and you're likely going to find a YouTube or two. Now, there they are, exploiting VSFTP 2.3.4 using Metasploit. Well, that's a great thing to watch because it'll teach you how to learn to use Metasploit, which is an amazing, fantastic tool. I cannot describe how much I love Metasploit. But I want you to notice here that we have the National Institute of Standards, NIST, and they maintain a website called the Common Vulnerability something or other. Oops, I can't hit it. And you will be able to get a listing of the vulnerabilities there for this particular VSFTP 2.3.4. Yeah, it looks like the page is down right now. So the way that you can look for this, let me grab a new one. And I'm going to grab a new tab, look for CVE, Common Vulnerability. I don't remember what the E stands for. VSFTPD 2.3.4. Let's see if we can get that. Does this one respond? CVE details. There it is. And what I love about this thing here is that it gives you information about it. And then one of these that you hit, it actually gives you the steps to take to duplicate hacking into this thing. So it's going to be important that your students know about the Common Vulnerability Database, how it's shared, what the ID numbers are, and things like that. And it looks like it opens port 6200. And if I look a little bit more, I think this one was the one that wasn't working. Here's exploit DB. It's not working either. And there is actually a vulnerability database built right into Kali. It is called Searchsploit. Let me clear the screen here. And what you do is you type in Searchsploit, and then you tell it what you're looking for. So you're looking for VSFTPD 2.3.4. Let's see what it finds. Boom, and we have a couple of things here that we can use. And it tells you that it was written in Ruby, and there's one that was written in Python. Now, when you enter these things in later on, like you're looking for a vulnerability that you want to try, you might get 8 or 10 listings, some of which are Metasploit listings. That's what makes Metasploit so very, very cool. But Searchsploit right here is telling you that there is a backdoor entrance. You can get what's called a reverse shell into this box, a backdoor. You can get a shell into this box by using VSFTP 2.3.4. You can be godlike on this system, like you can completely format the hard drive, delete files, whatever. And if you were looking for, say, database information, you could then go and tap into the databases at your leisure, see what you could find. So you could do a lot of dangerous things with VSFTPD 2.3.4. So that's the point. The point is you want to use Metasploitable to the very, very farthest inch that you can. What it's going to do is it's going to drive for you learning things like SQL injections and how to use, Nmap to a greater extent, and Burp Suite so that you can go out and look at websites and inject things in using Burp Suite and stuff like that. So Metasploit is a super useful tool to run in your virtualized ethical hacking lab and help students learn how to actually use these tools. So that's it. That's all I wanted to talk about. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have a great day, and I hope you enjoyed these 2 videos. I will talk to you later. Thank you. Bye-bye.